Welcome to another 88K model railroad video, and this is going to be a field fix for the Unitram system. Now the Unitram system is an urban or city type layout. It's about maybe 4 feet square, depending on if you have the basic system versus the expansion kit. Now it's very difficult to get the switches. The release dates are almost, I think, like 5 years apart, and they just recently had a re-release of the switches, and these switches are double crossover switches, and you'll see them here, and they're very difficult to get, but they're also limiting in the fact that it runs with a 25 millimeter track spacing, and that 25 millimeter is their standard or inner loop standard, and we typically run the Unitrack system, which is 33 centimeters track spacing, but it goes 33, I think 49 and a half, and 66. But because it's hard to get these switches, I thought that I would try to modify a number 4 switch, and because these are much more obtainable, and to at least incorporate some type of switching in this layout if you want to do some expansion or whatnot. So we're going to look at all the parts, the added or the modified parts that we need, then look at the geometry of the Unitram and the Unitrack. Then we'll go to the workbench and actually look at the conversion and what it takes to modify the one piece. So with that said, let's get started. Okay, let's look at the number 4 switch, which is the main component. Now this is a Kato 20-220 and 221. That's a left and right switch. Now these switches come with a supporting or a number of supporting track pieces, but the one that's more important, or the one that's important for us, is the 60 millimeters straight pieces. Now as you can see, those two pieces above, they're actually cut at an angle, and that angle allows us to mate the switch plus the turnout piece or curve. Without those cuts, then they would actually press up against each other and you would not be able to snap the pieces in. So we're going to use that, and then there's an additional curve piece that we've got to modify. So let's look at that. Okay, so the Kato 20-117, that is a 282 millimeter or radius track piece that's cut to 15 degrees. We're going to have to modify this particular piece in order to integrate the number 4 switch into the Unitram system. Now the Unitram system has the spacing, which is 25 millimeters, and that's what's inside the loop. Now going in the I'll call the outside world into the Unitrack, it has and can support the 33 millimeter track spacing, but those that transition takes one adapter, or it's in the center of the it's the center connection of the switch or the turn. And you can see it here in the image. The input is at the 25, and then the output on the curve is a 33. And what we want to do is to maintain and create the switch inside of the 25 millimeter section. So let's look at the geometry and what it takes to modify the switch itself. So here we are at the track geometry. Now on the left hand side we've got an example part. This is a 20-140 and it is a R381-30, which represents the radius of 381 millimeters and a 30-degree cut or 30-degree arc. The basis of this, or the geometry, is from the radian. And here you can see I've got the value and actually for a designation of the R1 and R2. And with the R1 and R2, that's how you get the radius. And this is where the nomenclature comes from. The radian is the degree here, or makes up the degree of the angle. And that's part of what the Unitram system uses in its nomenclature. And if you look over to the left, you can see these are all of the pieces, and each one of the pieces has a radius or has an R value, and that R value is the diameter of the circle that's created by the radius. With that said, let's look at the inner workings of the system. And what I mean by that, we're going to go in and look at the CAD, look at it from a CAD perspective, and we're going to build a piece and give it the name, the new name, to get to go through the exercise. So let's swing over to the computer and start up the CAD system.